Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. I'm Jamel Hartman. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House Lenders, and People's Pharmacy. Folks, don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Without further ado, we've got a very special guest. We are about to welcome Jonathan Howells. He is the CEO of Bermuda Press Holdings, which is the parent company of the Royal Gazette, Bermuda's only daily printed newspaper. Let's give him a warm TDH welcome. Greetings, sir. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I've got to say, I love the hairline. Kind of share it with you.
There you go. You appreciate it. What's wrong with that guy? I mean, not all of us are going to have a full head of hair at most ages, But I got to ask you, what's the greatest lie you've ever told?
Oh my! Wow. You're gonna have to give me a minute to think about that one. There's probably been so many.
You know what? I'm not trying to get anybody in trouble, whether it's domestic or legally. So let's keep that on the side.
Yeah, tough one.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I don't want to do that to you, but no, thank you for making time for us. For those who don't know, right? Just give the audience a bit about your background and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so I mean, Jamal's already said I'm the CEO of Bermuda Press Holdings, the parent company for the Royal Gazette. Most of my job is ensuring that the Royal Gazette keeps its doors open and that we continue to produce a newspaper every day. I have a great team of people who manage so many of the day-to-day logistics, but most people really don't truly appreciate the number of variables that go into making sure that the newspaper press turns over every night, and that we continue to engage with the community in a meaningful way. My background, actually not media, business. So, it's not my first passion, but it is definitely something I believe in, and I've come to grow and to appreciate so much the importance of media within a community, Jamal. It's a pillar of democracy, and without it, I think any country would struggle without a free press, independent media. The work that you guys do every morning, whether it be actually covering news itself, as Teo did with his analysis this morning on the tariffs, or picking up just other headlines that have been on other media outlets and diving into the sort of the opinion side of it. It's crucial to a healthy community, a really good dialogue. And that's why, for example, we have the comments on the website, which, we don't love, we don't hate, it's a tough place to be, right? But covering the news is our primary function, and there's a lot of people every day.
In saying that, an audience, feel free to send any questions that you may have. I know a lot of people, have opinions about journalism, news, and even, the Royal Gazette in particular. But with what you just said, though, speaking of democracy and comments and the like, what do you see from a business perspective? What do you see as the biggest threat to journalism today?
I mean, if you're talking the pure business sense, the dollars and cents side of it, it's going to be the erosion of advertising, or the transition of advertising. If there was $1 million of advertising to spend on the island, you've got competition between other media players like yourselves and us looking for advertisers, but we're also competing against all the social media outlets overseas. So a lot of money is leaving Bermuda. There was an expression in the industry, trading dollars for dimes back in the day. And that was the transition of print advertising to digital advertising, which was so much cheaper. So companies saved money by transitioning to digital advertising, and then budget cuts. So on the financial side, that's probably the biggest threat. On the sort of less obvious one is probably the rise of popularism, simple solutions to complicated problems being put forward, whether it be politically or non-politically, without a true understanding. And so I think there's a really big threat there, where fake news, if you will, or simplified news without a true understanding is a real threat.
I want to go further on both of those points, because you literally, I think we have to emphasize that. But let's start with the popularism, because many believe that traditional media is dead, right? In fact, Elon Musk, right, who owns Twitter X, he's literally convinced millions of people that they are now the media.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how does traditional media respond to that and this idea of fake news and the like?
Yeah, it's a tough place to be. I mean, of course he's going to say traditional media is dead because he's a competitor. I mean, he's looking for those eyeballs to generate money. So, I mean, you're almost spreading fake news. I mean, traditional media is under a lot of pressure. I mean, costs are high, and to the point about what do you import to Bermuda, the biggest import, containers of newsprint to print a newspaper. We bring in recycled newspaper by the container load. And there was an old adage, don't pick a fight with a guy who buys paper by the roll and ink by the barrel. But we bring in a lot of newspaper and ink.
Interesting. Let's go back because again, before it was just competing with other mediums on island, right? Now, as you said, you're competing with social media, digital advertising. I mean, you go on, let's use YouTube for an example, and you've got so many Bermudian companies doing it. And many of these Bermudian companies want Bermudians to spend money in Bermuda, but yet they're sending their money overseas. So using Bermuda Press Holdings, there was a report earlier this year that you announced a loss. How does an organization that's been around for so long and been a constant in the community respond to the ever-changing way that people are spending their advertising dollars? Like what do we do to get people to understand the importance of keeping things local?
We just keep telling the story, how important journalism is in our society. I mean, I think the really important thing is that there's a difference between obviously the medium or the media that you're reading, the way you're consuming the content, and journalism. And I think people sort of put them together. But the reality is the role of a journalist is so important. And they're a trained journalist, I'll say a real journalist, Jamel. I don't mean to insult anyone, but to somebody who's following sort of media guidelines, ethics, media laws, as opposed to someone who's just writing something online.
Right.
And, so that media, that role of journalism isn't changing anytime soon. That's an important part of what we do. It's the way the media's that information is transmitted, if you will, whether it's in print or in digital format. And then when you get into digital, you get the channels. And I think that we're just constantly trying to pivot with different ideas for people who want to support journalism, because buying the Royal Gazette isn't really about buying a newspaper. It's about supporting journalism in the day when you need us. There's a day comes where that headline story is shocking, or that headline story is is celebrating something in this country. And when we're there, we're there. And when you need us, could you imagine if you went and we weren't there one day? And so it's about, whether it be the Daily Hour, whether it be BBC, whether it be the Royal Gazette, it's about supporting the fact that there's a role in this country. And we're so small sometimes that every day you're not going to see something investigative or really, really critical on the front page of a newspaper in Bermuda. We just don't have the events, the population, but we continue to grind every day looking to ensure that there's a level of transparency. So it's just a pivot.
Yeah, indeed. Rick Olson says best bang for buck for advertising is Google and YouTube, which is devastating to local media. I actually disagree. I disagree, and I think this is the mindset where we have to kind of change and educate. And the reason I disagree is you spend money with a Google, which is YouTube. There's no guarantee. Here's the challenge. I couldn't tell you the last time I actually watched a full ad up there. So you click off it, right? That's number one. Number two, I don't believe the numbers they give me if I was to spend the advertising. Like, you can tell me anything. That's two. But number three, in Bermuda, when you're selling local advertising, you're not just sharing an ad. You're building a relationship with people. And I think that's what people lose, especially business owners. They lose this sense. It's the social media age we're in, though, Jonathan. The social media age is all about likes, views, clicks, and everything. It's not about relationship building. And advertising was once about building a relationship with a potential consumer or customer. Now, with social media, with Facebook, it's this whole thing about let as many people see it as possible. I had one of our sponsors say to us, and I'll share this publicly, shared it before. I would rather 500 people who align with my brand over 5,000 who don't. And that's how local Bermudian businesses should be looking at it, in my opinion.
Yeah. Bingo, as I'd say,
I see what you did there.
And Teo better watch out for ICE coming to get him. He's talking about Trump on TV. He
Exactly,
might get
right?
in trouble. But
don't talk about our president.
No, you're dead right. I mean, this is about supporting, right? This is. I mean, so many brands in Bermuda are already known and well established. Why do they need to advertise is one of the conversations that happens. And the reality is they're showing their good corporate citizenship. They are promoting the great work they do in the community, or they're promoting something new that they're doing, and finding a way to do that with that and supporting a local media outlet is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
As you say, Google doesn't give anything back to Bermuda other than a really good land deal out in Southside
that they got. Let's shift gears, because Bermuda Broadcasting and the Royal Gazette have done some things in recent months, which I've been publicly supportive of, but Bermudians tend not to understand it. Let me give you an example. So there's an Instagram page where it's called basically BDA_history, where they share a lot of Bermuda history. And I've seen Bermudians, oh, this is a great page, this and that. And it reminds me of Magus List, kind of, right? And I'm not taking shots at people, but the reality is Bermudians love something when they don't have to pay for it. So these people, whether it's Magus List or Bermuda History page, that's a lot of time to do what they're doing. But if they put a price on it, all of a sudden, you feel that there's no value, right? The Royal Gazette recently, over the last few months, created something where you have to log in, right? Yeah. Obviously, again, in small local community, advertising dollars are disappearing. Bermuda Broadcasting also, over the last few months, no longer put the news on social media. You have to go onto their website. Again, this is stuff, I'm heading off to Las Vegas today to the National Association of Broadcasting Conference. This is stuff they were telling us 2 years ago when Maya and I first attended. They're like, take your content off of social media, drive people to your websites. That's 101, right? But how do we, in this space, get Bermudians to understand it? Because I've seen the comments where people are like, oh, I can't find BBC News. Well, it's on their website. Well, it was so much easier on Facebook. How is a business that you obviously value supposed to survive and thrive if you want it to come to you in a space that doesn't benefit them? How do we change that?
Well, you've got to pay the staff. I mean, we've got to pay people to collect the news, to curate the content, if you will. And you're so right. The content is the only thing of value. The way you're distributing the content isn't the item of value. It's the content itself. And so, you've got to look for new ways to monetize content. And it's unfortunate, but if sharing it on social media is removing your ability to sell advertising locally on a digital platform, then you're going to have to pull your content off social media. And I don't think there's anything wrong, actually, with driving home quality, reliable places for people to go, that you're not just lambasted, if you will, with third-party commentary or third-party unreliable content. And Facebook's was, even during our election cycle, I probably spent 4 hours a day reporting fake news to Facebook leading into the election. And that's not part of my job, so to speak, but it was just people were trying to use our brand to spread lies.
Right. I remember seeing that too, Jonathan. Audience, if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to hop in, because I know a lot of you have a lot of opinions. We have Rhonda Johnson says, the Royal Gazette, in my opinion, is bending towards ripening Bermuda to Trumpism. Not sure what that means, but do you want to respond to that?
We're not Trump supporters. We're not supporters in any way like that. That's not our job. Our job is to report the news.
How hard is it? Because every media platform pretty much gets labeled as either being right, left, or being favorites. I mean, the Royal Gazette, more than any other medium in Bermuda, has been accused of being a part of the combined opposition. I think the other challenge, and you mentioned earlier, investigative journalism, everyone expects every journalist to be an investigative journalist and provide some sort of stories. How do you keep the balance with the public and continue to say, no, we're not biased, we're not choosing sides. We're just reporting. And no, not every story is going to be investigative journalism. And again, they want this stuff, but no one wants to pay for it, right?
Yeah. I mean, everybody has a bias, right? We all have a small bias somewhere, or large in some cases. But I think if the current premier calls you up and is frustrated with content, and then you look at your relationship with previous premiers from either political party that we have here that have been in power, and they're all complaining at you, then you're probably fairly down the middle.
Okay, fair enough. Audience, any other questions or comments for Jonathan Howes? Bermuda's a small market, right? A very small market, and I think many of us don't understand how small. But Bermuda would represent a small town in most jurisdictions throughout, North America.
Yeah.
In a small market like Bermuda, what's the key to remaining relevant? Because we've seen newspapers come and go. We've seen, VSB disappear. We've seen Bermuda Sun disappear. We've seen Bermuda Recorder. We've seen the Mid-Ocean. Literally, it's really two news outlets. And I'm not being disrespectful to others, but when I say two main news outlets, the ones who employ a lot of people, right? We still do have Trevor, who does a phenomenal job of reporting. We obviously have Ciola does her thing, and then there's Burr News, who does a lot of press releases and so on, and does a lot of live content. But as far as big organizations and the most employed people, it's really Bermuda Broadcasting and Bermuda Press Holdings and the Royal Gazette. What's the key to remaining relevant so that you can keep people employed? Because you're not charities.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's pivoting. And I think it's remaining relevant inside of your community. Mm-hmm. And I think that we don't always do the best job of that. The community is broader than we probably are seen to reach at times. Mm-hmm. There's almost nobody in Bermuda who doesn't look at us at some point. Mm-hmm. It's a question of how often, how frequently, and how do we resonate with them by ensuring that we have content that is of interest and of appeal. I mean, content's beyond news, right? I mean, you know that. So it's making sure that you're relevant to people in their daily lives, beyond the headlines, if you will.
We've got Mark Arthur C. Phillips is asking, Mr. Howes, do you feel having an additional newspaper would be a benefit to the Royal Gazette?
I mean, if they're producing quality content, I mean, I made the joke one day. Someone said, if you want to start up a newspaper, let me know. I'll happily print it for you. You can, the more that press runs, the more it helps us. I don't think it's about the medium. It's about the content at this point. I do think there will come a day where we'll see less and less printed papers and more digital type products continuing. It's a question of how to make those digital products successful financially. And you can do it on a really small scale. But when it comes to a story that takes 6 months, 20 patty requests, hundreds of hours of work to generate, it's really tough for a small outlet to do that.
Yeah. How important is collaboration? Because again, advertising dollars are disappearing. There's so many mediums fighting for that advertising dollar. You've got radio stations that pretty much just entertain. You've got news outlets. You've got people with businesses that are selling advertising on, bikes and stuff. Now it's just a lot out there competing. You have people with events that are seeking sponsorship dollars. How important is collaboration with other mediums like ourselves? I mean, we did something for the election night. How important is that going to be going forward?
Critical. I mean, I'm here with you this morning, right?
That's it.
I think collaboration. It's going to be about efficiency and scale, and ensuring that we're not like there are if the Daily Hours channel is the morning 8 to 10, and that's their audience, and it's about working with them to ensure that audience is getting the best part that they can get from that media outlet. And if that requires our collaboration with you, then why not? What's the damage?
Indeed. Indeed. I love media. I do. My most miserable time in my career was when I was working in tourism. I'm just being very frank. But
Well, it is media right now, isn't it?
right? It's the top story every day, thanks to the RG. But I always tell people, and you mentioned something earlier, and you said not to be disrespectful, but it has to be said. I say on this show very often, I am not a journalist. I respect journalists a bit too much. If I had it my way, like you, I would not be. My face wouldn't be doing this. I would be in the background on the business side. That's what I enjoy most. That's what I love the most. Due to Teo annoying me, that's how I ended up in this space. And come on, Jay, come on the show. But in saying that, there doesn't seem to be a lot of young people gravitating towards this industry. Jonathan, how do we change that? Because you spoke about community. Like we need to get some young Bermudians into this space, and if we're really to make some inroads and progress as far as community goes, right?
It's not a new problem. It's not a new problem. It's an old problem. And, to be a journalist means you're going to have to ask hard questions and put yourself in difficult situations. And a lot of people, I think, find that difficult, especially in the social era and then growing up with social pressures in ways that we didn't have as children with Facebook. Facebook, I can't even remember how old I was when I went on Facebook, but I'm getting old. But, with the youth, the social pressures and the judgments that are just, I think that the resilience to those judgments is difficult to develop nowadays compared to the past. And journalism is a passion. Thomson Reuters once said you get 2 journalists out of every 80,000, two higher quality journalists out of every 80,000 people. So that means, I'm going to say Bermuda punches well above its weight limit, as it does in so many other areas. We've had some great journalists that Bermuda's developed. Formerly, our former editor Tim Hodgson was an incredible journalist. But the journalists are people who they are very skeptical, and they're very they're hard. Like I can have a conversation with a journalist and I almost have to watch what I say with my own staff in case they take it the wrong way. So it's something that's really difficult to entice young Bermudians in. We have Sekou who joined us, who's been going through the training program. And we constantly are looking for people. If you think you're interested in a career in journalism, reach out. I would be happy to engage with anybody who's a young Bermudian who wants to pursue a career or thinks they might want to pursue a career. We bring in interns in the summertime, and that's really important to us, trying to encourage a younger generation of people getting involved in understanding media and news and hopefully becoming journalists.
Indeed. Question from WKD Lama says, do you think the editor, who the editor is, affects how the public views the Gazette? Also, Sam Strangeways is awesome.
Well, I'm sure Sam will be proud to hear that. Sam gets a lot of criticism and a lot of accolades, so I'm sure she'll appreciate that. Who the editor is an interesting one. I think the Royal Gazette is coming up on a quasi anniversary, if you will, only 200 years. Tainted past. I think when Dexter came on board, we would have seen a shift if the editor from sort of the Bill Jeremy transitions, we would have seen shifts. But the reality is we haven't. I think the political cycles and the need for the Royal Gazette to be the official opposition at times, or to be demonized, if you will, is probably more of the tone of than the editor himself.
It's interesting because many people who don't know, Dexter Smith was the very first guest on the very first episode and really helped launch the Daily Hour. Yeah. But in saying that, I don't know how he does it. I honestly, Dexter Smith has some of the thickest skin I've ever seen in any Bermudian. That's just being real. I don't have the temperament. I don't. I think that people will probably appreciate him long after he's retired and done. But I think that's what we have. And of course, it's almost like what happened with President Trump. Like, people ride with what he says, whether you like him or not. He's going to be a case study one day, because that whole fake news thing, anything that was traditional news became fake to people, right? And now you create this thing where, you're now the news. That's why I'm very delicate. I am not a journalist. You all know what I do. If I see it in the Royal Gazette, I discuss it, right? That's my go-to. I pull it up on the screen most times. I discuss the news. I don't report the news. Taylor and Maya and Samir may put together a story based on something that they've done. But I think people understanding the difference in that is so important. Right now, and I have to talk about this before you go, the podcast era, we haven't mentioned that, right? Literally anyone can just buy a mic and put themselves out and label themselves as a journalist. I don't know if dangerous is the term. Maybe it is. How dangerous is it? Because again, social media is one thing, putting stuff out, but podcasts, people come across more believable because they've invested in, equipment, right? Like, how dangerous is that to, actual journalism?
I think that's a judgment on the reader or the audience. I think that an educated, critically thinking individual is going to listen to something and go, okay, I've heard that. Is there more to this than just what I've heard? AI is creating podcasts frequently now. They're not even generated by people anymore. I think the rise of the ability to disseminate information is probably a better way to describe it. And it is now getting to a point as an audience of the questioning, am I reading something that is from a reliable, known, trusted, independent, reliable source? Or am I just consuming entertainment? Something for media value, like that's not got real media value. And I think that's it, right? I describe news and business as like, we have news, we have opinion, and there are different spectrums, right? The one's at one end, one's at the other. And then you've got community in there, and you've got data along the way. So you kind of got like, news, data, community, opinion, in a sort of a line, and understanding that everything we do is backed up by verification. Now, the challenge is, what's the verification? And people will say, well, it's an anonymous source, and that's where it gets difficult, right? Small community, as you pointed out, Dexter, having to have thick skin, people willing to come forward, willing to share their stories. We probably publish less than half of what we're shared, right? There's so much more always in the cycle, but we can never get to verification or the end of the story, if you will, to tell it.
Indeed. AI, you mentioned it. That's what I wanted to leave off on. Look, people can go on Chat or Copilot, whatever, and really create their newspapers at this point. How do we respond to AI as it relates to traditional media?
Again, it's that verification. I remember once putting in the chat GTP, who owns the Royal Gazette? And it told me that it was owned by a media house, which was the former owner of Bermuda Sun. Randy French was the editor. Jonathan Howes was the accountant. It gave me this whole and so what it was doing is just scouring the internet for any cross-reference points it could find, and then made up a story. And so AI is adding elements to things that aren't real. And when you think about, where does Bermuda's history actually reside? It resides in the archives of our media, whether it be the Sun, the BBC, the Royal Gazette. And if those sites aren't being indexed by AI, or those data points aren't in the AI model, then what you're getting is a blend of anything else that's out there from other jurisdictions. And so you're not going to get local content on AI. And as good as AI is right now, the data sets of Bermuda are incomplete. So it fills in the blanks.
Yeah, my thought is, in local media, like small towns, AI shouldn't impact us as greatly as it would a place like the United States. So I definitely thank you for sharing that. Couple more questions. He's got to go, folks. We can't keep him on.
You tell me when I got to go.
All right. Mark Arthur C. Phillips, he's saying, do you have an outlet or a section in the Daily that reports the news from a young person's perspective?
Yeah, there's a I think it's a youth news, and it's was it Youth Connect that does some content. In the summertime, we had a number of summer students generating content. we've done everything from partnering with schools to do the school newspapers. There's always been community content or youth content from younger people, or people well younger than me anyway.
He says younger than him. Mark Altus Phillips says, with the birth of online media, is it a challenge to report the news in the 21st century?
Yeah. I mean, you probably see it even, Jamal. I mean, the immediacy, the expectation of immediacy is probably the challenge, right? A government press release comes out or a company press release comes out and people are expecting to know about it right now. And so you put the press release up online, but the actual journalism behind that, investigating or making it relevant, it takes time. And so the immediacy is not there. So that's where I think the biggest change has happened is the instantaneousness with the internet and with social media.
Indeed. We're having a gala at the end of the month, and you're going to be a part of the panel. Part of the purpose of the panel is really to engage and educate the audience about the importance of local media. Be yourself, Jasmine Patterson, who's a journalist at Bermuda Broadcast, and we've got Trevor Lindsay, who owns TNN, and he's more instant reporting, like quick, the opposite of what we were just talking about. And then we've got Miss Thang from a radio perspective, which to me, radio is probably taking the biggest hit because, there's so many different options. People listen to podcasts and their own music on their devices and the like. But what are your thoughts on overall local media remaining relevant as a whole versus going global? Because there's benefits to going global, right? There's benefits to it, but keeping people focused locally through all aspects of media, like how do we achieve that?
I think maybe it's a different lens on that. Maybe it's really not up to us. Maybe it's up to the audience. Maybe the audience has to decide what it wants, and they speak with their dollars. Similarly to shopping in Bermuda, if you want to shop online and ship everything in, and not support the local retailers, when the local retailers are gone, are you going to miss them when you need something today and you can't get it today? And I think that that's the difference between local and global when it comes to news, right? I think that the local news is the most important thing what we do. It's unique to Bermuda, to our community. Global news is not. Global news is available on hundreds of other outlets. I could fill a newspaper with it every single day, but it's not of relevance because you can get it some other way. So I think that it's really the audience's decision to make is how important is journalism to them, not the outlet, not the medium that is being delivered on, but the actual value to them of journalism. And I think that that's the conversation that needs to happen. And by the way, I'm super excited to be helping or participating in your gala event. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to sitting there with you and having a drink. Hopefully it's a Friday, because this is a pretty hard way to start a Friday morning.
Saturday night.
Okay, that's even better. That means you got all day Sunday to recover.
Very good. Well, I have a lot more, but you know what? We're going to save some for the gala. But Jonathan, before you head out, just let people know, because you still have people on mediums. Actually, Suzanne said something here. She says, I keep forgetting my password for RG, so I don't log in. Sheesh. I have to keep hunting for it. Let them know how easy the process is, though, because so many people, they still think you got to pay to sign in and the like. Just explain why you went towards that process and how easy it is to get their news.
Right. So it's been a long process internally. We've been trying to consolidate platforms and simplify a lot of our work internally to cut costs. And one of the challenges is how we bring all of the engines together with a sign-on. The reality is that we needed better data of audience engagement. We're not selling that data. We're not giving that data away. It's really easy to create an account. It's really easy. It's free. It does not cost you money. All the pop-ups go away. You don't have to pay. I think you have to give me an email address and a password. Maybe the country you're coming from. There might be 4 or 5 fields. I can't even remember. It was so long ago I did it. But that's it. And there's nothing nefarious behind it, if you will. It's really just a way for us to be able to remove some of the backdoors into our software, third-party logins. So Discuss is a good example. Quite shortly, we won't allow Discuss commenting handles. You'll only be able to use a login through the Royal Gazette. And it's really, we're liable for all the content on our site, including the comments, and being able to ban people when they're creating new accounts or because of their libelous comments. Those types of things were a lot of the impetus behind it. And so there's no fee. It's free. Please sign up. We're not doing anything bad.
Yeah, with Pippa, whatever it's called.
Pippa.
Yeah,
Pippa. Yeah, it's fun.
Michael Daniels, he says, are there any opportunities for Bermuda Press Holdings to reach, to expand your reach, to other regions?
I mean, in other regions, there are other outlets. I mean, our reach is Bermudian. So our reach is, 60% of our day is people local, and then the other 40% is overseas, and most of those overseas people are going to be Bermudian. So that's our audience. That's who we are. I don't know how we couldn't print a paper and take it overseas, and so shy of setting up a news entity somewhere else, and then I'm just competing against somebody else.
Yeah, indeed. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time, and it's been an awesome conversation. I have to go prepare to travel. And
where are you heading to?
We're going to Vegas for the National Association Broadcast Conference. So it's going to be a very busy. Oh, it's tiring, but
who's looking after bingo?
Well,
I just have to say it again. Man, I'm sorry.
See, you're like Teo. I thought we were on the same team. Come on.
No, we bond over the hair. Yeah. We tease over the plant. Okay.
Yeah, bingo will be fine. I'm going to water him after we're done here. But thank you so much. Appreciate you making time for us, and we'll definitely be in touch very soon.
Anytime, Jim.
All right. Jonathan Halls, folks, if you appreciated the conversation this morning, please give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. We're going to take our final break. I'll be back in 2 minutes, 54 seconds to wrap it up. Stick with